Hello and welcome to Casually Criterion, bonus episode. My name's Chris.
My name is Justin.
And my name is Mike. Today we will be talking about Get Out, written and directed by Jordan Peele, and is one of the Best Picture nominees this year for the Oscars. So we're going to go ahead and get a review out right now for you.
Good to see another brother around here.
Yes, of course it is. Something wrong?
There you are. Do something with this.
Yes.
Oh, hello. I'm Philomena, and you are
Chris, Rose's boyfriend.
fantastic. You two make a lovely couple.
Thanks.
Where are my manners? Logan King. Chris was just telling me how he felt much more comfortable with my being here.
All right, so Get Out. It came out a long time ago.
Like April.
Yeah, in the spring at least. I don't remember exactly when, but yeah. So
I'm sure no one has watched it because they've all been waiting for our podcast review.
Right.
Don't worry,
Yeah.
everyone. Now you can go watch Get Out.
Yeah. But so it's a bit of an odd movie in that sense
To be
nominated for Best Picture. And also in the sense that it's a bit of a horror film. There's kind of like two rarities. I think I don't know, but I remember maybe the last movie that I can think of off the top of my head that got nominated that came out way earlier was District 9 when it got nominated for Best Picture.
It was District 9 was nominated for Best Picture?
Yeah, unfortunately.
I mean, it's a good movie, but I don't know if it was Best Picture good.
Well, it was one of the nominees that were
Yeah.
just kind of there.
Yeah, it was
the
the
token
first.
nominees.
It was the first year that they did more than 5 nominees,
okay.
and they could do up to 10. I think they did all 10, and District 9 was one of them.
Okay.
So, anyways, irrelevant. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Starting now. Anytime now, we could spoil you. So, okay. So first off, just general thoughts on Get Out. Mike, you want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. This movie is solid. It is very good. It's very smart. It's a very, very good script, in my opinion. Like, everything comes back around on itself. Everything pays off. It's very solid, very impressive first movie for someone like Jordan Peele. And I think it shows that he's got a really strong background in comedy and in writing, which I think all shine through in this movie tremendously. What do you think?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed it too. I'm not a horror movie guy, and there were some tropes in here that weren't my favorite, but I think ultimately he took that horror movie genre and kind of turned it on its head and added a new element to it that was interesting.
Sure.
That made that sets it apart from your typical horror movie. And Justin, what did you think?
I actually really, really love it. I rewatched it again. I saw it back around the time that it came out, and then I rewatched it again for this podcast. And watching the good movies again only make them better. And this time I just really loved it, like start to finish. Everything about it I think is really, really good. I don't think necessarily think it's going to win Best Picture, but like personally, it's high up there. Like it's probably in like my top 3 if I could choose. I don't know that I would choose it, but
Was it in your top 5?
It's in the top 3. It wasn't in my top 5, but I don't think. I think it's the second viewing that really like
Made it
solidified it. Like it was probably 6 or 7.
Okay.
When we did the top 5. But to what you said, Mike, about Jordan Peele being like knowing comedy and writing, I think that he also knows film pretty well. Like I get that vibe from this movie of like, it's not just the comedy. The comedy bits aren't necessarily the best bits in this movie. Like generally it's like the suspense. And
I would argue, though, that it's a stronger comedy than it is horror movie. Do you not agree?
Maybe traditionally, like traditional horror film, but I don't think it's a traditional horror film. Like I don't know. There's a few moments where there's like these jump scares and that sort of thing, but it doesn't seem like the type of horror film that's genuinely trying to scare you, right? As a viewer. It's more of like the horror film that's like watching everything unfold and like the suspense that goes with that, I guess. But I don't know. There's also like there's a Key and Peele sketch where they're watching it's supposed to be like 2 black guys in a movie theater, but instead of like they're supposed to be like annoying and loud and obnoxious, but instead of like saying like stereotypical things, and they're like giving like heavy, deep film critique of the movie that they're watching. They're like, oh yeah, I love that shot when it was in Nosferatu, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think based on watching the movie and like that sketch and some of their other stuff, like I think he's got like a really good. I wouldn't be surprised if he had like a really solid background in like film and film knowledge.
Yeah, I don't know where I heard this or read it, but Jordan Peele is saying he's basically directed or written like 800 short films through his, what was the name of their show?
Key and Peele.
Key and Peele, that makes sense. But he's had a lot of practice with short films, a lot more than probably a lot of directors get. And I think this is just really solid. Like I'm legitimately excited for his next outing. I can't wait to see what the next thing is that he's going to do.
Yeah, and I guess real quickly, the Oscars that it's nominated for are Best Picture, Best Screenplay. Jordan Peele is actually nominated for Best Director, and then Best Actor in a Leading Role for the main guy, Daniel Kaluuya.
Yeah. Have you guys seen him in anything else?
I haven't. I don't know him from anything else.
Mike, did you ever see Black Mirror?
No, I've seen an episode of Black Mirror.
He was in the second episode of the original series, and he's really good. His eyes are really expressive, but I think he's a really good actor.
Is he British?
Yes.
Man.
He's a good
What
accent.
do you know?
Yeah, I didn't even know that. But I don't know. What do you guys think of that? Like, I guess if you had told me in the spring that Get Out, the new Jordan Peele movie, would later be nominated for Best Picture, Best Actor, and Best Director, would you guys have believed someone if they had told you that? Like, having not seen the movie and maybe even like just seeing the trailer?
Yes. I think I would have, because I remember when that movie came out, it was like rapturous reviews.
Yeah, I mean,
I wouldn't have predicted
but
but if
prior
someone had
to
told
reviews,
me it was going to happen, I would believe them. Like, it's not something I would have called, but I also wouldn't have heard it and been like, no way.
It is unusual, I would say, that this is nominated. But yeah, I don't know that it's necessarily super surprising, considering the subject material and stuff like that. I think it makes it more relevant. It makes it bigger than just a normal horror movie, right?
Yeah, and I guess maybe we can talk about that a little bit. Is the subject matter, the social commentary that it's trying to get at. Like, I've seen some people say that it's purely nominated for those aspects because people like the social commentary movies and the political statement sort of movies. I don't know. Do you guys feel that way about this? Like, or would you agree? I guess not. Do you feel that way? But would you agree?
I think the social statements make it more important, right?
Yeah, well, it gives it a certain weight that
Right.
I don't think other Blumhouse releases usually get. Like, I don't think Happy Death Day is going to get nominated for anything, right? But Get Out, it does have something to say, and because it has something to say, I feel that is why I don't feel surprised that it's getting all this attention, and I'm glad it is, because this movie actually handles a lot of these criticisms in a clever way, right? Like in a smart way, in a thrilling way. Usually, I find. What do you think? Do you think that that's the reason?
I mean, I guess like I don't think that it has that any more than like Three Billboards does.
I think it handles this subject matter in a much more satisfying and intelligent way than Three Billboards.
Yeah, I agree. I think like, I guess like the one like comment that I've seen specifically was saying that like Three Billboards will win, or Three Billboards should win, but Get Out will win because it's a social commentary. And so I was like, what? Aren't they both social commentaries in a sense? Or,
I feel like
commentating on something.
And I know this might be controversial, but I feel like Get Out is a very obvious commentary, whereas Three Billboards, it comments on things, but doesn't make that its entire purpose. So like it touches on things and keeps on going, whereas this movie, that's what it's designed to do, is touch on those things. You know, like the story is written around the idea of touching on things that you could tell Jordan Peele has been wanting to touch on.
Yeah. Like the social commentary kind of has like a neon sign around it. Like
yeah,
to
that's kind of the only thing that makes it exceptional. Like if it didn't have the social commentary, I don't think it would be. Well, I mean, I guess it wouldn't make sense without the social commentary because it's so embedded into the movie itself, right? But like if it weren't for that aspect, I don't think no one's saying it's scary or like genuine. Like it's not scarier than other like horror movies that have come out, right? It's because of the commentary that we are even having this conversation. I feel, I don't think that you can exclude that element from it. So though I see the argument, I don't think it's going to win just because it does have that. But I'm glad it was nominated because it is smart. It handles people who are not in this, who don't identify with the protagonist. It allows you to understand and see like white people who are like well-meaning but are still racist, right? It shows you a side of like racism you don't normally see.
Well, it turns out that they're all racist.
Well, that's true. That's true. But at the beginning of the movie, when you aren't supposed to know that,
right?
I voted for Obama. I would have voted for him 3 times. My man, the non-racist stuff that's still
where it's calling out their race, even if you're in a way that you're defending it supposedly. Like when the cop asked for his license, and she's like, "No, you can't look. Why would you want to look at his license?" Which actually makes sense why she wouldn't want the cop after to see his license, because she wouldn't want a record of him being up there.
Oh, right. He didn't want that guy's state ID being called in by that police department and then having...
Right.
I saw this guy here once he turns up missing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, so going off of the Obama thing, do you think that there's a sense that, or like a suggestion that there's a white person controlling Obama? Like, that's what I was thinking the second time whenever he was talking about Obama so much and how he's like best president we ever had and how much they like him. I don't know that that's true, because I think in general part of like the racist, non-racist stuff is that like they generally admire black people for certain qualities.
Are you talking about the people in this movie? Like
the people in the movie, all the white people.
Right. Yeah. Well, they do, but it's like fetishizing. It's like a creepy, uncomfortable way for him, because he's showing up and he just wants to spend an evening and not be treated different. But then like when he calls his friend, the TSA comical relief guy, whose name I can't remember, he's like, "Oh, they got you on display now, don't they?" Like, so, it's not intending to be racist, but that doesn't mean it's not.
Right. Well, it's the thing. I voted for Obama, so I can't be racist is
right.
Racist in itself, right?
Right. Or I would have voted for him a 3rd time.
Yeah.
And like, yeah. Watching it as a white guy, I cringe during some of these scenes because I'm like, oh God, this is embarrassing for me, Yeah. So
I just find it hilarious. And I'm not quite a white guy completely, and I'm not black, I'm brown. So I don't know if like I'm somewhere in the middle, but like I just find all of that really funny to watch.
Do you ever did you relate to any of it on a personal level that Chris and I would not?
In some ways, yes. In other ways, no. But like, so like, for example, there's been many, 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 many times where I've gone to like the local soccer team here in Houston to watch them play. Mm-hmm. And I'll be with a group of friends who most of my friends are white. And I'll be walking in and they'll pull me aside to like search me more with like the wand.
Get out. Are you serious?
I'm very serious.
Get out.
I wish I was joking, but it's like, so that's like stuff has happened to me, but I do not think it's like to the same extent as like, black people have had it, or like that.
Sure.
It comes out in this movie, or like the suggestion of the way that it is for this movie, or the way that it is for them in this movie. Because I think that's part of what the movie is about, is like basically like the fear and sort of like paranoia and concern that black people have, like living in a world of, or at least like, I think that's like what Jordan Peele's getting after, right? Mm-hmm. It's like the fear that they have to live in of like the cops and like, are white people
the opening
after them, like which ones are good ones, which ones are bad, you can't really know.
Mm-hmm. The opening sequence was really good, I thought, and it was like one shot kind of.
Yeah, it was all done in one shot, which was really cool.
Yeah, and I just liked the character's like, nope, not today, and he turns around and
I wanted to talk about that actually. Yeah, that actor, his name is Lakeith Stanfield.
Yeah,
and in my opinion, he is the best thing about this movie. He is also in Atlanta.
Oh, that's where I knew him from.
He is hilarious in that
Yes.
show too.
Yeah.
He is so good, and he is great in this movie. Like the very opening scene when he's walking down the road, and like the white car pulls up behind him, and he's like, "Nope, I'm just gonna go the other way. I know how these motherfuckers do it." And like he like turns around and he starts trying to, and that's so smart, right? Because like that's what you as an audience member, you're like, "Get out of there, man! Turn around!" Like. Do what they don't do in horror movies, right? So like Jordan Peele's such a good writer, and he knows that he's like one step ahead of you, and he's like, okay, well I'm gonna make him turn around and show that like, okay, that doesn't work, you know, like the guy's not just gonna go away, like they'll find a way to still get him.
There's a lot of that sort of like
Subverting
really
the
smart
tropes.
movie making, yeah,
Yeah.
which is I think goes again to what I think he's got a really deep film knowledge, and understands this of like how to put the joke on the trope a bit, and like, but still also have the horror movie feel while being funny.
It's a bit like Scream, maybe, where it's commenting on the genre as it's also commenting on, the social stigmatisms or the social aspect of it. Like it's also commenting on the genre. You know, traditionally, black people in horror movies don't make it very far. They're, they're not the main characters to begin with, and then they usually get killed off fairly quickly.
Yeah.
So he's kind of turning all that on its head and making it interesting, which I really enjoy. You know, if we ever go on a weekend trip and I accidentally hit a deer or any kind of animal, I am just turning around right then and going back home. Because that's just a bad sign. You got to go home.
It's a bad omen.
You're walking into a horror movie. What do you think the deer, speaking of which, what do you think that represented exactly? What was he trying to say? Because then later on, the deer is on the wall, the big deer that he kills the dad with.
So I'm not totally sure. I'd have to think a little bit more about like the deer on the wall and how that plays into it. But there's the part after they hit the deer when he goes out and he looks and he can see that it's dead or it's not dead, and that it's bleeding out. And later on, we get the story of his mother. That he heard she got hit by a car,
right,
and then they had laid there bleeding for a long time, and he knew that like, oh, if I had gotten the courage to go look for her, I might have found her in time.
Or call the cops.
Or call anybody, and then put people out there looking for her, they might have saved her. So I mean, that's the really obvious parallel.
Yeah,
I think that's actually really smart too. He even has the dream about it before he goes out. There's a scene where I think it's like the first night he's there, and he needs to smoke a cigarette, and he has like a dream about the deer in the forest crying at night in the cold, right? And that wakes him up, and he goes downstairs to smoke, and that's right before he gets hypnotized. And it's also where he sees I can't remember the character's name, but the grandpa character in the really strong guy.
Yeah,
and he's
the supposed groundskeeper.
Right, the groundskeeper, and he's like running towards him, and he makes that like sharp right.
Yeah.
So he's clearly that. I think that's exactly what's on his mind. We don't know that at the time because we don't know what's going on yet. But upon second viewing, that's exactly how I took it.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that I think it's needed, to parallel the mother thing, and I think that's all working really, really well. But it's one of those things that like the first time you watch the movie, it's such a cliche of horror films is like the driving scene, and then something happens, and like you hit something, and it's like this first like and
I just recently watched a movie. I forget the name of it. It's a small budget like Netflix, but it's the exact same thing. They're driving out, and they hit a deer or something, and then they go on, and it's
it's like this bad omen cliche that happens. But like it's honestly, you roll your eyes at, but like in the end, after you've seen the movie, everything, like it works.
It means more. And I haven't seen it a second time. I think both of you guys have, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I watched it in preparation for this.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I was saying earlier, which is just like it's really smartly written, right? Like everything comes back around.
So he uses a trope to make it
wasted.
better. Yeah.
Yeah,
like not,
he uses our expectations.
Yeah.
Not even the friends like TSA job. Like that even has like that payoff when like it's a cop car that pulls up at the end, and it's the lights, and you're like, oh no, a cop's here now, and like it might be the one. It might be the one we saw earlier who was obviously maybe kind of racist because he unnecessarily tried to look at Daniel Kaluuya's ID, right? And you're like, oh no, this is just about to get worse. And like the cops are also going to see all these dead bodies and just assume that he murdered them.
There's no way he's getting out of this
and
alive.
then the door, then the first time the door opens and it says there's this airport on the door, and you're like, oh,
Thank
yes,
God. Yeah.
right. So you should get that payoff from like the TSA. That like up until then just seems kind of irrelevant. Like it seems like it's just there for like a joke, jokes here and there of like when he's like the friend is in the cop's office and he's telling, he's like, I'm TSA, we know some stuff, we handle our stuff too, we're like detectives. You think it's there for just those jokes, but like it does have that like that really like that payoff moment too that goes beyond just jokes. And real quick, we just mentioned the friend, and I think that he is actually the best part of the movie.
He's pretty
contrary
great
to the other guy. He's really, really good. He's sort of I guess like he figures everything out.
He's
the
us.
Second he hears it. Yes. Yeah. He figures everything out the second he hears what's going on. Right.
Yeah.
Like essentially like whenever he's like, I'm going to go to their house. And he's like, no, man, don't go in. Don't ever go to white people's house. Like from the get go, from like before Daniel Kaluuya's even left, or maybe when they're in the car on the way. And then later on, Daniel Kaluuya is talking to him and he's like, I saw this guy. They recognize that he's this guy they used to know from the theater, and he's like, yeah, he was here with this like woman who's like 30 years older than him, and he just immediately goes, sex slaves. They're sex slaves, and it's funny because it's like, oh my gosh, he's just jumping to wild conclusions, but every conclusion that he jumps to, like in like knee jerk reaction conclusion, is spot on what happens.
My favorite thing with him is when he's on the phone with a girlfriend after David Kaluuya has been abducted, and she's like, you've always wanted to fuck me, I know that. He's like, what? No. And he just gets really upset and
yeah, he's like, hold on a second, and he's like mute the microphone, and he's like, you're lying. Yeah. I think that guy's,
he's like, she's a genius.
Afterwards.
Yeah. She's a goddamn genius. Yeah. So he's and he like hits all those notes. Like he's got a lot of comic relief to do, but that can fall so flat with like the rest of the movie, right? Like I think
it can contradict the rest of the movie.
Yeah, like that the tone of all of that has to be just
off.
right.
Yeah.
To not just get weird, and I think he pulls it off really, really well. So he's one guy that I think is maybe a little underappreciated.
Yeah, let me ask you this, because he calls it so early on. When did you guys start catching on what was going on was actually going on? Like, did you wait for the reveal before you figured it all out, or did you catch on pretty quick?
Justin?
I think, and I'm trying to remember back to the first time that I watched it, because it was forever ago.
Sure.
To remember exactly when. I don't think that it's much of a surprise when it happens. I don't know that I figured it out exactly ever until like it was specifically stated. I got the feeling that they were doing some sort of hypnotizing and using it, but I don't think I quite realized like specifically like
what it was
they
for.
Are entering their consciousness into this body and controlling it. Like I don't think I quite hit like the nail on the head, but I think everything I'd figured out up to that point is really obvious, and I think you're supposed to be aware. Like I don't think it's necessarily supposed to. Sure. Much of it is supposed to surprise you.
Yeah.
Chris?
So I guess I'm on the same page as Justin here. I didn't really I knew stuff was up, especially once they had the bidding scene. But even in the bidding scene, I didn't know exactly what they were bidding for. Like putting their consciousness in the body. Mm-hmm. I didn't figure that out. You know that something's up the whole time. I just didn't know what exactly.
I think it kind of plays towards making you think that there's some sort of like hypnotism slavery going on,
Right.
Like, because I think that's just playing off of our like societal expectations of like, oh, it's white people and they have black people around, they're making them into slaves.
Right. And see, that's what I thought initially, right? But pretty quickly into the movie, I thought it was so apparent because it seems like all the black people he interacts with when he's actually on the estate, they're all doing their white person impression, right? So like they're all doing like the same voice that every black person does when they want to imitate a white person in movies, right? Which is like the like dorky voice, which is fine. But I also feel like it's maybe a little much. Like I think Lakeith Stanfield sells it perfectly. The groundskeeper guy, not so much. Like I thought the groundskeeper guy was like mentally challenged.
Yeah, he just came off as creepy and weird.
He just comes off as weird. He's like chopping wood, and like I don't think that scene works at all. Like on the second viewing,
right? So it's kind of misleading, is what you're saying.
It's too leading, right? Like I feel like it's too obvious.
The opposite.
Yeah, it's like I'm like, oh, he's doing an impression of an old white man. But the scene with Lakeith Stanfield, whenever he's with this old white woman that's like 30 years older than him, that scene worked perfectly to me. But did you guys see any difference in between like their performances? Or
I mean, I haven't seen it a second time, but the first time, it just, all of them, there's 3 black characters that are all acting weird and something's wrong, you know, and I didn't know exactly what was wrong. So that's kind of, I hadn't put my finger on what was going on.
I guess I didn't have my finger completely on it, but I suspected and hoped I was wrong because I didn't want to call it so early. This isn't the first time I've seen this exact plot device used in a movie, right? This isn't like transferring consciousnesses into another body. There's been other movies that do something similar.
It's like a Twilight Zone episode.
Well, it's like the movie Skeleton Key with Kate Hudson that came out like 12 years ago, something like that. Or Stepford Wives, something like... Stepford Wives isn't exactly the same, but this movie has a Stepford Wives vibe to it, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think the whole time I was thinking of Skeleton Key, which is a movie that I saw so long ago and hadn't thought about since. But as soon as this movie came on and I started suspecting what was going on, I couldn't help but not think of that movie. So I don't know if any of you guys have seen that movie, but
I haven't seen Skeleton Key.
Yeah, I haven't seen either of those movies, so maybe that's part of it. I also think that there's sort of 2 different type of people when it comes to these kind of mystery movies, and I think there's the people that think ahead and try to figure it out and like want to be a step ahead because they don't want to be fooled, you know, and then there's people that just kind of get in and let the ride take them, and maybe there's more than 2 now that I'm saying it, but like you know, like me personally, I get in for the ride, and like any sort of mystery movie, a murder mystery, anything like that, like I never ever figure it out before it happens, and I never try to. Like I just sit there and watch things unfold. Like I maybe there's certain movies where the object is to try to figure it out, and so maybe in that sense.
Well, sometimes it just comes to you too, even if you're like, he's seen a couple other movies that are very similar to this, and so he just is like, wait a second, this is just like this.
I think that's more what it was. Is I was initially disappointed because I figured it out without wanting to. Because like I'm not usually one of those guys who's trying to figure out a twist.
So did you like the twist, or?
Yeah, it's fine. It's good. I think the movie's written so well. It's not really one that can be spoiled in that way, right? Because you have like a tight script and everything's still paying off, right? Like, so you still have, like Justin was saying, the TSA agent joke is still paying off because it's still made well. I think it's good, but not great. Let's just put that. Like, it's solid and it's well made and it's totally satisfying, even if you do see it coming. Because, like I said, I didn't see everything. Like, I didn't see like the basement stuff coming and like the.
And you're talking about the whole movie is good but not great, not
right? Yeah, the whole movie, right? But like, even though you see a basic twist coming, doesn't mean you're going to see like the brain surgery part and like the bidding part. And I didn't see everything coming, right? But the idea that these are white people inserting themselves into like younger black bodies, that was something that became very apparent to me very early on. And I don't think that necessarily makes it bad, but it did make me wished that I hadn't seen it coming.
Yeah, I think it's a movie that the ride is so enjoyable that it doesn't quite matter whether you see it coming or not. And I guess in some ways you could argue that it would be better if you didn't see it coming and were truly surprised.
Well, I feel like some people in the audience with me were surprised, right? And I envied them.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised the first time to the exact extent and method to what was going on.
My general rule of thumb, like when it comes to spoilers and stuff, like if I know the ending of a movie before I've seen it, if it's well made, I'm still going to enjoy the movie, even though I already know the twist. Like Game of Thrones, for the longest time, I knew everything that was going to happen, pretty much, you know, but I still enjoyed the TV show, you know.
Sure.
So yeah, and I mean, a well-made movie, you know, can be rewatched. Like I can rewatch like Seven, right? I'm like, I know who did it.
I know what's in that box.
Yeah, and it's still a good movie. It's still enjoyable. The ride is very fun, and I think this is out of all of like the best picture nominees, I think this is like the most enjoyable movie. Like on just like a straight, like how much did I really like just love watching it
and
have a good time? Like absolutely, this would be like Best Picture winner if that was like the only criteria.
I think one thing that he does so well in this movie, and he being Jordan Peele, right, is casting the nicest looking people to be not nice people, right?
Yeah.
Like, I not Allison Williams. She's pretty hateable, I think, based on her.
Is that the girlfriend?
Yeah, she's in Girls. I think she's playing to her type here, which I think she seems like she could be a girl like this. But I'm talking about her parents, right? Like Kathleen Keener?
Yes.
Catherine Keener? And,
Bradley Whitford.
yeah, Bradley Whitford. They seem so nice and so, like, harmless and so sweet. I think it's a really great casting because they're so menacing and so... And, like, it
Right.
makes, like, the betrayal when it finally does happen and, like, all that more disturbing because you did want to like them and you did want to hope that, like, well, maybe they're not the ones that are evil here, you know? Maybe we'll see, you know?
They're just a little racist.
Right, yeah, they're just trying to be not racist but being racist. But it's also great because when they end up being truly evil, they just relish in it so well because they're just such likable people that it's like a conflicting thing.
Stephen Root was in it too, and anything Stephen Root, like every time Stephen Root's in something, he's going to elevate it. He was the blind guy.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of comedy people being not very comedic.
Yeah.
I think. And one more performance that I just want to like touch on is the brother. I do think at times maybe he's just like maybe overdoing it in terms of being like the bad egg of the family who's like clearly got a problem with him and like is trying to be menacing and tough and like not putting on airs at all.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's intentional or what. Like I think he's great. Like he's my favorite part of Three Billboards. I enjoy many things that he's doing in here and just him in general and his whole demeanor. But like, I don't know. I guess if I'm going to be critical, I do think at certain times he's just kind of overdoing it just a touch. Like it's coming on like a little too strong.
Do you think that's him or do you think that's the script?
I don't know. Maybe a little bit of both. I tend to have a lot of sympathy for actors when they do something weird and like blame the director because the director's in charge. Sure. And if he's overdoing it, I think he
needs
should have been.
He needs to reel them in. Yeah. Whenever they're getting into that weird territory.
Well, that's kind of, but the brother's character is one of the tropes, right? Like, you go to the home and there's like the one guy that's just like a jackass, and and then you find out that maybe he's the one that feels the most guilty about it. You know, I feel like that's why he's acting as shitty as he does because he actually feels guilty about it, or he's being the most honest about it. Anyways.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like he doesn't relish in it the same way Allison Williams' character does for sure. Her character
when she turns, you mean?
Yeah.
That was pretty creepy. That last scene before the fight and stuff, where she's flipping through like the NAAC or no, what was it like what is the basketball?
Oh yeah, she's like Googling athletes and stuff.
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
And then she the way she drinks the milk, she takes the milk and like takes 4 swallows from it. You know.
Yeah.
It was pretty creepy.
Yeah, I really love that moment where she finds the keys.
Oh yeah.
Because the whole time she's like, I can't find the keys, and then like as soon as like it's just like this switch gets flipped and she just pulls them up and just looks and like I don't know. I just think that moment's really
and the rest of the movie, her
really good.
Hair's in a ponytail, so she looks different than she did before. You know, like
no, I didn't notice that.
Okay, well, is that it then?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. It's a solid movie. I think it's good, not great. Justin thinks it's great, and Chris, you think it's good, right?
I'm probably in between you two, but I think what I'm the most excited. I'm excited for the next one. I'm excited to see what Jordan Peele does because I think there's greatness in there, and I think we are we have not seen the best of Jordan Peele yet, and I'm excited to see the best.
Yeah, I'm excited to see some more social satire and satirical comedy like that. Maybe some horror as well. I hope that in the next movie he maybe expands his scope out a little bit more.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so that is it for the show. Thanks for listening, downloading. Again, thanks to Jake Wagner-Russell for doing our intro-outro music. You can find more of his music at soundcloud.com/bobscotch. And I think we wanted to remind everyone real quick about our Oscar bet.
Yeah, make sure you guys send in your Oscar picks. See if you guys can beat us, and then you can pick a movie for us to review on an off-week episode. Justin's about to list all the places that you can contact us, so just send it into one of those, and we will post ours sometime in the next few days on probably on Facebook, so you guys can compare and see who wins.
Yeah.
Keep us honest.
Yeah, so you can contact us and follow along and shoot us your Oscar prediction list at Facebook, facebook.com/casuallycriterion podcast. We also have a Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/casuallycriterion. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at casualcriterion, or if you just want to email us directly and say hey on a private note, you can email us at casuallycriterion@gmail.com.
All right. Next week, we actually have a Criterion episode for The Silence of the Lambs.
Exciting. All right, well, until next time, we'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
Adios.